My wife, 48, and I, 49, have been together for nearly 20 years, married for 19 of them. We have a total of 4 kids, 2 girls ages 18, 16, and 2 boys 15 and 12. This year will be our 20th anniversary, though it's safe to say that I am not in the mood for celebrating that event. I'll never be celebrating it at all. The cheating never should have come as a surprise, because my wife had been threatening to leave for a few years now. I'd take it in stride, let her say what she wanted, and then things would go back to normal for a while. This started way after our kids were born, so for the sake of the kids, I just put up with it. My wife has always enjoyed spending time with her friends. At least once a week, she would go out drinking with them and come home late. I always enjoyed spending time with my kids and being at home with them anyway, so it didn't matter to me. Once upon a time, my wife used to like it, back when the kids were smaller, but at some point, that changed. Again, it didn't matter to me because I loved being at home with them. It was this year that my wife started going out multiple times a week rather than just once. I didn't think much of it at first. All I thought was that since the kids were getting a lot older now, she just had even less interest in staying home with them. There were 4 of them, but I tried my best to be enough for them. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. One day I was contacted by a family member of my wife who confessed to me that my wife had been cheating on me for more than a year with a guy named Greg. They met at one of the clubs my wife frequented with her friends, though they have told me since that they had no idea it was happening. My wife was doing a great job of being secretive that not even her closest friends were able to figure it out. She hadn't confessed to this family member. Rather, they had spotted them kissing in a McDonald's parking lot. Classy, I know. We might have not been very close, but she felt like it was important to confess the truth to me. When she got home from going out with her friends that night, I confronted her with what her family member said. At first, there was the typical denial from her. Then when it became clear that I wasn't going to buy it, because this family member had no reason to lie to me, her demeanor changed to one of anger. "What did you expect?" she shouted. "You never interested me and only paid attention to the kids." I admit that after a while of my wife being constantly hot and cold, I gave up and stopped trying. But what else would you expect? One could only be burned for so long before they stopped wanting to get hurt by the fire. For a few days after that, we didn't speak until I finally decided that I couldn't go through the motions anymore. Even for the sake of my kids, it wasn't very healthy for them anyway, something I realized now with therapy. So I told her I was officially filing for divorce. At first, she seemed thrilled that she was going to be free of everything. She could be free to continue with her relationship with this guy Greg, who I knew nothing about and didn't want to learn about either. It's what she probably wanted for years now. Why she didn't just bring it up to me rather than string me along was beyond me. Friends and family seemed shocked by the news. I didn't say much about the situation, telling them nothing more than she stepped out of the marriage and I was seeking a divorce. Any questions they had, they could send my wife's way. Let her deal with them. It's been a couple of months since DDA, and I'm not going to lie, it was difficult to get to a point where I was no longer struggling every day. Slowly, I started to climb out of my shell. I've lost 30 pounds and gotten back into working out. My kids also seem happier. That was probably the best thing to see. I should have realized how the tense environment between me and their mother was making them feel. All 4 of them didn't say as much, but it seemed like a weight off their shoulders. They had chosen to live and spend much of their time with me. My wife was fine with this in the beginning. Then the consequences of her actions started to make her newfound freedom seem not so free. We lived in a city, but our neighborhood was quite close-knit. My wife was always the more outgoing and friendly one, so she interacted with them more. However, after news of her cheating reached the block, they started to shun her. I honestly was surprised to see them cut her off and rally around me. She was always more of an active neighbor. Yet despite that, they were quick to give me whatever support they could give. Something interesting happened last week. My wife had come by to see the kids, which I allowed because I still wanted them to have a relationship with their mother. I walked the kids downstairs and saw my wife waiting outside the building. One of our neighbors walked by, one that my wife had been very close with. She said hello, and the neighbor completely ignored her. The icing on the cake was that when she saw me and the kids, she said hello. My wife was red in the face from anger and embarrassment. She practically stormed away from the apartment with the kids trailing behind her, looking confused and a little embarrassed. I almost burst out laughing, even if it would have been pretty immature to do it, not that I'd be blamed. Look at what my wife had done. I made sure to text them and check in to see if everything was going all right, because I was a little concerned with my wife's attitude. However, my eldest daughter assured me that everything was going all right. My wife wasn't taking anything out on them, so I could relax and be assured that they were going to have a good time. I've gotten the feeling that any time she comes around to pick up the kids, this is going to happen. I don't feel anything towards her, and certainly not 1 ounce of pity. My wife, and hopefully ex-wife, soon once everything is signed, is the one who did all of this to herself, so she is the only one she can blame. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep focusing on me and the kids. I don't know if romance will ever be in the cards for me again, but that's a bridge I'll cross if I ever come to it. For now, the kids are my #1 priority, something my wife never quite managed to learn in all the years we were married. OP, first let me say that good on that family member for stepping forward and telling you what was going on. Sometimes family will stand by family even when they are in the wrong. It's nice to see this wasn't the case. Your wife truly beat you down until you had no confidence left. That is extremely hard to bounce back from, so it's good to see you are slowly taking the steps to get there. Trust me when I say your kids are going to appreciate that you are putting their father's mental health and well-being first for once. I'm glad that the neighborhood is sticking by you after news of the affair came out. Sometimes karma never comes for cheaters, or it comes too late. In this instance, it's nice to see that your wife just isn't going to be able to walk in and continue these friendships. She lost the chance to be their friend when she stepped out of your relationship. Just make sure to keep an air of civility for your children. Your wife still is their mother. It doesn't mean you have to like her, but you do need to at least remain civil. Surprisingly, it seems like your wife is going through this, despite her transgressions, so I hope it continues. Now for our next story. My now ex-wife, 35, and I, 35 male, were together for 9 years, with one of them being spent as a married couple. The two of us didn't have kids, but we had 2 dogs that we loved to pieces. One of them was disabled, so they required a little bit more care than the other, but that didn't matter to me. We had our fights and issues over the years, but it was nothing it didn't seem like we could work on. I foolishly believed that our issues were something that could be fixed. I went as far as to suggest counseling, to which my ex-wife agreed. However, to successfully do couples counseling, both people have to be willing to work with the therapist. I was more than willing to work with the therapist and was upfront about my issues. Most of the time, she would just let me talk. A few times my ex-wife didn't even show up, so I was left there, sitting awkwardly with the therapist who felt bad for me. Despite this, I wasn't willing to give up. Then I discovered she was cheating on me, and it was like a huge wake-up call. It was a complete accident that I discovered it. She said she was going to hang out with a friend for the day, so I spent the day doing some chores. This included going to the grocery store to grab some things for dinner. When I was there, I ended up bumping into the actual friend she was supposed to be out with. I asked the friend where my wife was. Her friend seemed confused, so right then I knew something was up. Why would she lie about hanging out with a friend that she wasn't hanging out with? It was hard to do the grocery shopping when my mind was focused on where my wife was, but I managed to do it. When I got home, I waited for my wife to come home. She came in the door, greeting me like nothing was wrong. I confronted her right away because I couldn't wait to talk about this situation. When I told her I ran into her friend, her face paled. She said she made a mistake, but I didn't buy it. I pushed and pushed. Eventually, my ex-wife told me that she was sexting with this guy she met online. This had been going on for nearly the entire time we were married, which devastated me. That night was the first time they met. How romantic, I sneered. Normally, it wasn't like me to be sarcastic, but I was hurt and just so angry. Here I was trying to work on this relationship with my wife. I was even willing to go to counseling. Meanwhile, she is messing around with this guy. I looked back at all the times she was on the phone and laptop. It didn't seem odd to me before, but now I realized how intense it was. Her first reaction was to beg me to give us another try. We were best friends, she said. She couldn't live without me. When I pointed out that the two of us were already seeing a therapist, my wife said she was going to try this time. In an act of desperation, I gave her a second chance. Then 3 days later, I caught her talking with the guy. She said they were just friends, and it was difficult to cut off a friendship. My wife claimed they had to taper off slowly. It was at that point I knew my marriage and entire relationship was over. I told her that under no circumstances would I give her another chance. The moment I said that, it was like a flip switch. My wife told me fine and moved out. She ended up staying with her parents. We rented a house, so at least we didn't have to deal with that. I was grateful she was just quick to move out and not put up a fight. Our dogs were confused at first and desperately missed her. I did my best to help them transition to the new environment. Pets can be like people in certain ways. They get separation anxiety and react to sudden changes as much as we do. Once she was out, I kept trying to get her to take the rest of her stuff out of the house. I didn't want to look at it anymore. After weeks of badgering her, I got sick of waiting, put the boxes in the back of my car, and went to her parents' house. I had no animosity towards her parents. They always treated me nice, so while they were surprised to see me, they seemed happy. Her mom said she was sorry for the divorce, and said sometimes people just fall out of love. This confused me, so I asked my former mother-in-law what my ex-wife had said was the reason for the divorce. My ex left out the cheating bit, so I felt it was my duty to tell her parents the unabashed truth. They seemed shocked, so I offered to give them evidence if they didn't believe me. No part of me felt bad for telling them the truth. My ex should have been upfront with them. They were good people but figured they would support their daughter despite this because it was their daughter. Oh, how wrong I was. I ended up discovering through mutual friends that my former in-laws confronted my ex about what I said. She denied it when they said I offered to show them proof. She admitted that she did step outside the marriage. Her parents then told my ex that she had 30 days to find a new place. At the end of those 30 days, she would have to get out regardless if she found other accommodation. My former mother-in-law did reach out to me to apologize, saying they didn't raise their daughter to have terrible morals like that. I accepted the apology even though it wasn't their fault. How are they to know what their daughter would do as an adult? I got quite a few angry and explicit texts from my ex after her parents kicked her out. She told me that she could be homeless and shamelessly demanded that I let her stay in her old apartment, at least until she got on her feet. My response was to tell my ex to go stay with her AP. If he cared about her so much, then surely he'd let her stay. I blocked any possible numbers she could contact me from and started the next phase of my life. Trying to heal from this relationship was by far the most difficult thing I had ever tried to do. I had my family and friends beside me, but they could only do so much because unless you've been through this situation, it was hard to relate. However, spending time with those who care about me, going to therapy for just myself, and just taking one day out of the week to take a walk or something proven to help. I still am in the middle of the healing process, but I know I've come a hell of a long way since first discovering her affair. As far as I know, my ex still isn't talking to her parents and is couch surfing until she can officially move into her new apartment. There are times she still tries to reach out to contact me, but outside of official channels regarding our divorce, we have no reason to talk. Let the AP have my ex. He may think he has won the ultimate prize, but this couldn't be further from the truth. My ex is about as far from a prize as you can get. OP, it's great that you are able to see the bright light at the end of your tunnel. You're seeing it because you are the one who took the time and effort to get yourself there. Even though you did give her a brief second chance, you quickly changed her mind when it became clear your ex had no intention of working on your marriage. Surviving such turmoil is not easy, but take steps to help you heal along the way with therapy, spending time with loved ones, etc. There will be times you may wonder if it's all worth it, but trust me, it is. You just need to keep at it and constantly be looking as well as moving forward. I also just want to say that your ex is truly a piece of work. It's great that her family was able to see her for who she truly is. It can be a toss-up when dealing with family and friends. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.